When is the last time you listened to a podcast about web development, web design, and small business and didn't fall asleep? Yes, we cover web development, web design, and small business, but like actual human beings with personalities. If you're a beginner, we're not going to talk over your head. It's more like asking your buddy for help. We have guests, we have fun, and let me tell you, these two can get off on a tangent. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to HTML All the Things Podcast. This is Matt Lawrence and Mike Curran.
That's right, everybody. We are back. This is the HTML All Things Podcast. This episode is titled Top Mistakes That Developers Make When Building a Web App and How to Prevent Them. So actually, Mike wrote this episode, and we're going to be talking about things such as leaving the hardest unknowns till last, over or under engineering, spending time in the wrong places, ignoring security basics, skipping tests, a whole bunch of other things. We actually have a list of about 7. Hopefully we get to all of them today. So this sounds interesting to you and you want to support the show, you can go check us out on that Patreon, leave a review, rating on your podcast app, join us in our Discord server, or share this with your friends. And just a reminder that we are powered by Code Rabbit. Cut code review time and bugs in half instantly. You can do that on their website, coderabbit.ai. You can go ahead and nab yourself a 14-day free trial, no credit card needed, and just a 2-click sign up with GitHub or GitLab. And if you want them to know that we sent you, this is not an affiliate link, just a tracking one. You can click the link in the show description or in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com. Now, also, if you want to learn how to code, you want to get some courses, you're like, I'm sick and tired of Matt and Mike talking to me on this podcast. I want to get some courses in me. You can go ahead and do that. You can even get some full stack courses now. Save up to 20% off Scrimba. That's using our link, scrimba.com/link/htmlallthethings. And that is an affiliate link, but again, it nabs you up to 20% off. Go ahead and check that out and use their interactive media player code editor and rather amazing amount, actually, of different instructors and different courses and a lot of diversity there in terms of CSS and HTML and backend and front end and this and that and everything. Go and check out that huge library, scrimba.com/link/htmlallthethings. All right, Mike, why don't you take it away before I take another ad? Actually, hang on. We're sponsored by Fruit by the Foot. No, we're not. We're not at all.
No, we're not. We're not. Okay, yeah, for sure. So where did this episode come from? I think, like a lot of things in what I learn, this episode came from the mistakes that mostly I've made. I've built a lot of products over the last 11 years that we've been in the industry, and I've made a lot of mistakes, whether it be like managing wrong, whether it be choosing the wrong tech, whether it be doing things that don't matter, or spending way too much time in an area that we shouldn't spend time in, right? Like I've done probably every mistake someone can make, but with that came a lot of lessons, and I have become better and better at developing products and getting products across the finish line. I feel like that's one of my strong suits, where I can come into any startup or anything like that and figure out where they need to optimize, where they need to cut back, and where they can compromise and get a product across the finish line. So I'm going to try to give you as much of those tips and a bunch of the pitfalls that I've seen, and hopefully that'll help you ship better products, whether it be for your team that you're working on, whether it be your solo project that you've been working on for the last 3 years and can't get across the finish line. Either one of those, I think these will help. And with that being said, let's jump into the first one here, which is over-engineering and under-engineering, right? Like I think a lot of times people talk about one or the other. I like to put them both together because I feel like you do need to find a little bit of that golden zone when you're trying to plan a product or plan a feature, and try to get yourself in a position where you're not putting so much effort into something that you are making it way too complicated for no reason, but you're also not putting in zero effort into it and you're screwing yourself in the next 3 months or 4 months that product is out, right? You need to find that solid golden compromise. And once you find that, I feel like you're going to have a better time. And the problem here is like getting to that middle zone is really difficult, right? Like it's not something that you can probably do the first day that you're on a job. You need to figure it out. You need to make those mistakes. Like hopefully I can give you a little bit of guidance here, but know that you're going to have to find your own way of finding that middle. and be okay with going a little bit under and a little bit over as you're getting there, right? Like you're going to probably over engineer a few things and that's okay. And you're going to probably under engineer a few things and that's also okay. But as you're going through your cycles, look back, right? Like when you're going through and you finished a feature, look back a little bit and retrospect a little bit and be like, was that really necessary? Like were those infrastructure deployments that I had to do, was that stress testing that I spent a week on, was that really necessary to put a button on this page or something like that? Like I'm oversimplifying, but like look back a little bit. And I think a lot of developers don't do that. They just keep going forward and forward and forward. But the one big tip that I'll give you for over and under engineering is look back at your previous features that you've shipped or haven't shipped and see why, right? So I'll give you some examples of over engineering, right? Like something like you want to do a microservice for something on day 0, right? You want to break out a little function from your application and put it into its own application and run it separately from your application just to have it as a microservice, just first day, without knowing that you need it as a microservice, right? A microservice could be great for this because it needs to be accessed by multiple different things. It could be great if you need to scale it differently than your actual application. There's many reasons to use a microservice, but to just automatically architect every little thing as a microservice is going to increase the complexity way, way over. So having stuff internal that can be internal, that doesn't need to be scaled separately, it doesn't need to live on its own service to be accessed by multiple things, is okay. It's faster. Like a monolithic structure is usually faster to work in than all of these little microservices. And that's what you should aim for most of the time. Like you should almost always assume it's going to be monolithic and find reasons to put it into a microservice or to put it into its own stack or whatever, or separate it out rather than just immediately inherently like choose a microservice. Another one would be like excessive abstractions, like adding more packages, adding more libraries to your code base just to make it like one step easier to write something, right? Like if you have a function for if you're downloading a package to check for a number is even or not, right? Like if you're trying to check for a number that is even and you download a package, you've gone too far. Like you've overstepped the limits of packaging and abstractions. Some things you can do without having to download a package and putting an abstraction. You can check that in straight JavaScript without too much of an issue. It's like 3 lines of code. Okay. So figuring that part out is also definitely over engineering. Adding in like a queue system when you don't even know how many people are going to be hitting your project. Like a queue is really good for if you have a ton of people hitting it and you need to make sure that your database connections aren't overloaded, right? That's great. A queue is great for that. You're on day 0 of a project. You don't need a queue today. If you need a queue for this function, you'll add a queue later. That's okay. Over engineering that before you know what your actual traffic is going to be is definitely an issue where you're going to be spending more time on the queue than the actual feature, most likely. That's the reality of it.
Well, I have a question about this. So, I mean, some of the over engineering is definitely going to happen because people are like afraid of downtime for sure. Like if a certain server is being overworked and you're like, oh, we need to have two servers now and they need to be load balanced or what have you. Or one of the classic issues that we see with people is like some people will, oh, we better go, and this is IT systems, but as well as web development is like, oh, we need to go and use like a cloud host. We need to use cloud services because they scale indefinitely or they scale really well, but then they end up, spending like in some cases like 40 grand a month for something that a few $100s and one dedicated server could have like did, right? And it is scary though, because if that one dedicated server gets overwhelmed, now it's like, well, it's not just a matter of like click 2 buttons and now I'm on the cloud because I've grown to that stage. It's going to be quite difficult and there's going to be some engineering involved there. And so I guess like I don't know what my exact question is. I guess it's more like how do you get around that fear, I suppose? Because there's going to be people that, I mean, for like rightfully so too, especially like entrepreneurial types that are like very fast moving, where if they go to like a tech and they go, hey, like I want this, and this, is there any, shortfalls here? Can this go down? And the person goes like, yeah, it might go down at 10,000 users. And it's like, oh, okay, the heck with it. We're going to go and we're going to go to the biggest and best. We want 100,000 users. We want 1 million users. And then the thing never even hits 10,000 because it's, a brand new site, a brand new web app, a brand new whatever, or the company goes in a different direction. And so like some of this over engineering, under engineering, like it's an issue of the engineer, but it's also going to be a business issue as well. Like no doubt. And I don't like really know how you solve that. It's probably one of the reasons why technical debt is so like prominent now. Well, just I mean it's always kind of been prominent, but in this particular, kind of conversation.
I agree with you. This is a very specific question, but like I do have an answer for this, and I've given this answer a few times before to people that have asked something similar. In the particular case of like, hey, I'm worried about traffic and I don't know what my traffic is going to be, right? Couple things you can do. One thing is try to predict the traffic, which is really difficult and almost impossible, but you can try to do it by launching a kind of landing page with a wait list on it before you launch your product and see how many, like with all the information that your product's going to have, and see how many signups you get. So see how much interest you have, and then extrapolate from that to a certain degree, right? Like if you get 1,000 signups, you're probably going to have like less than that of traffic the first day. If you get 10,000 signups, a little bit less than that. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can predict a little bit with a wait list. It's not going to be exact, and it could scale to both sides. So it could be like you get 10,000 signups and you get only 100 people hitting your product, or you could get 10,000 signups and all of a sudden something goes viral and you get 1 million people. So it could scale, but the chances are lower and you have a little bit of predictability there. So that helps. And when then you can adapt to that solution, whether it be like, hey, okay, if we have, 1 million signups, then it's like, okay, maybe I can skip over these like initial scaling steps and actually go to the more intense scaling. So that's not over engineering at that point. That's actually being very reasonable.
Right.
And going and, getting a proper scaling solution, getting dedicated servers potentially, or, choosing the cloud if you have the money to host on the cloud or whatever. Like whatever choice fits your budget, fits your needs at that price point. But if you don't have a good, clear understanding of how many people are going to be there, or if you're like, oh, probably no one's going to be there, but if I do the marketing correctly, maybe I can scale it pretty quickly. But the assumption is that it's probably going to be a slow scale. I do still recommend people go to these, platform as a service type places that have auto scaling in them and have a very generous kind of scaling platform until you hit that top tier. So Vercel, for instance, something that I've used many times in the past and I've recommended, has a very good way of scaling you up to a point where, yes, when you hit like a few million requests a day, it's going to start costing you some money, like probably a significant amount of money. But before that time, like, you up to 100,000 requests a day, you're in a pretty good spot where it's almost going to cost you nothing. So it does scale, like it does go up quite a bit, quite quickly, but you can usually monitor that. And I have a section in here with observability, and I'll talk about it later, but like, you can usually monitor that point and then like adapt accordingly. So either like, hey, if this is going to be a free product forever, it might be a little bit difficult, but if you have a way to monetize, you should be able to monetize away your server costs. Like you should be able to exceed the money that you bring in should be able to exceed the server costs based on the traffic that's coming in for platforms as a service type things. And I would say that's not over engineering as well, because you're relying on them to do a lot of the engineering for you. So you're able to focus on different things. But yeah, it really depends on if you're able to estimate your actual audience that you're going to have when you launch.
Yeah, 'cause I was going to say like it always feels, I guess, like in tech that we're trying to find the best solution, but like especially with websites and web apps where they're public facing, like there's obviously like a random element to it, which is that potential virality, the potential of being attacked, things like that, DDoS, whatever, like a whole bunch of different things. And like I think at this point as well, it's like there is no bulletproof solution. I feel like when people ask the questions that I just did, or when I broke it down there earlier, it's like people want the bulletproof solution and there just kind of isn't one. And proof of that, honestly, is in like we've had clients like contact us and literally ask for bulletproof solutions for like tiny projects too. And it's like, hey man, like, I don't mean to be rude here, but I'm like, YouTube goes down, Google goes down, things like that. And, how many developers, engineers, servers, resources does this company have? They had on call. They probably have shift workers. They're they're so big that they have they may have an internal logistics company. It's like it's to the point where they may have to talk to utility companies to deal with the electricity they use and stuff. Like I don't know all those details. The point of what I'm trying to say is that their solution is not bulletproof, and so we can only kind of do what we can do. And I mean, obviously, you want to do your best job possible, but I think that like that's likely where a lot of over engineering comes from, is people trying to get a bulletproof solution when there just isn't one. There is no bulletproof because you're open to the public. Like if you had an internal app, like a web app, your company's 25 people, and you're like, all right, well, I'll scale it for 25 people, maybe even 20 if they're not all using it, whatever. And then the company keeps going bigger, 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 and then they get to like 200 people, and the app keeps going down. It's like, well, that's your own foolishness there, right? Where like you should have scaled it for the 200 or 150 or whatever was going to use it, and you did not. But you can't predict a random social media post. You just can't do that.
That's the thing. Like, and for the predicting part of it, or for the uptime part of it as well, that's why a lot of these companies, the serious ones, offer 99.99% uptime.
Right.
99.9, because it sounds good, right? But when you think about it, 365, days, 99% uptime, you're still like, that's still allowing you to be down for a day. Like, it's still allowing you to be down. And that's the reality of the situation, is that you can't really predict everything, and you can't say that like without an asterisk. And if you look at any legitimate host or a legitimate site that has 100% uptime in their marketing material, there's always an asterisk there. And if you go down to the asterisk, it's like, actually it's like rounded up to 100, 99.9999, whatever they decide is a fair number of nines after the dot. But and that's how you have to present it. That's how you have to sell it. Like, a lot of people will come at you and be like, oh, I need 100%. And you have to sell them back the reality that I can get you really close, because that's the you can. Like, if a site's down for a couple of minutes, it's not going to affect anything. It's not going to affect the 99.99%. But, the real world circumstances come into play, and you just have to be not scared of those kinds of circumstances to adapt. But yeah, there's a lot of things you can do to not over engineer too much based on where you're at as well, right? Like, so if you're a company that's trying to go into an established business or an established market, and you already have a list of clients that are signed up, it's a different aspect. Like, you might have to be more serious. You might have to not over engineer, but properly engineer those systems a little bit better than a company that's trying to break into a brand new niche that has no signed up customers, and you just want to test your product out. Like, if you're just trying to do a proof of concept, it's very important to not over engineer.
Right.
And that's the key here, is that balance really relies not on, like, it's not the same for every product, and it very much changes based on the situation of the product. And part of the, like, finding that middle is knowing what situation you're in. And like, I won't be able to teach you that through a podcast, but that's something you need to, again, retrospectively look at as you're building something, and see what you could have done that took so much time a little bit less, like, you maybe make it a little bit easier because it wasn't that important. But the same thing kind of goes, and I'll touch on this really quickly, for under engineering, right? Like, I see a lot of that too, where people just want to fly, like, run, and don't stop and think about a few steps ahead.
For sure.
Like, putting everything into one big file when they're working with a team of people. Like, that obviously is going to make things really complicated, because if multiple people need to work on the same project, you're going to have merge conflicts all over the place. So you need to think a little bit ahead. We're like, oh, if I got 3 developers working on this, I'm probably going to need to split this out so I can work on this file. And, team number B can work on that file, and Jim Bob can work on this file. Like, there's just some logic there. Like, it's not over engineering. You're making it so that you can work together as a team. It's all logical things that you have to think about. Like, oh, I'm not going to put types into this, right? Well, just think about, like, it's not that much overhead to put types in to this. And if you put a type in here, someone down the line can also work on this and know exactly what you're expecting that variable to be, or that function to return. Like, there's just these, like, trade-offs that you can make that aren't over engineering trade-offs, but are enough to make your code base a lot cleaner. And you should be looking for a clean code base. Like, you shouldn't be, like, just writing janky code and never going back and fixing anything. You should be hoping for your code base to be readable. You should be hoping for it to be maintainable without, writing everything as a class and without putting everything into overcomplicated abstraction layers. Like, you need to find that balance. And it's difficult to talk about that without a specific use case, but like, you'll know it when you see it is my best way to put it.
Well,
Right? Like,
I
you'll
would
know.
equate it to the running, like the move fast and break things. Under engineering, honestly, like has kind of under engineering is a side effect of move fast and break things a lot of the time, not always, because what ends up happening is it's like, oh, move fast and break things. Let's go, let's go, let's go. But what the problem is that we forget that there needs to be a product at the end of the day that customers are going to use. And then what happens is it's like, oh, we're just, there's downtime and there's this and there's these problems and the things won't upload and things won't download and sometimes it goes down and, my team's burnt out and I had to get more things and this and that. But we're moving fast and we're breaking things. And it's sort of like, you're kind of like operating on like a manifesto of move fast and break things. And you're forgetting that, hey, move fast and break things works in some contexts, but you're under engineering things in order to move fast. And at the end of the day, like the customer eventually is going to want whatever it is that you're doing. It's like Google search, for example. Like, I don't know how move fast and break things Google search is, because it's been virtually the same. I understand there's algorithms in the back with crawlers and things like that, but it's been virtually the same product for like 10 years. One of the biggest things that's come out of it is obviously AI overviews. And there's been some SEO changes, but for the consumer, for the non-technical person, they haven't noticed. They just go to Google, they look up whatever it is, like my house plants are dying, what's happening, something, and then they just like Google that, and then that's it. And so the product is the same. Could you imagine if it's like, oh, Google's down again, oh, I can't sign in today, oh, Google's down again. It's like, well, Bing is going to take that market share then. Even though Bing is worse, in my opinion, at search, Bing's going to take the market share because someone's going to be like, this is not reliable anymore. And so that market share, like that, for example, for me is under engineering. Or the move fast and break things it gives birth a lot to under engineering, because they're just like, go, come on. And like, we see it a lot with clients where like a client will want to move super fast. And I'm like, hang on, like you have a website already. You don't need a new one. Your host isn't shutting down or something. Why don't we, like, the last website you're replacing is a mess because you were going fast. Why don't we, like, you have that thing up. It's workable. Leave it. Don't waste time, but take your time and make a good solution. They're like, no, let's go fast. And then what happens? The second website that replaces the first one is a mess as well. And that's another thing of under engineering, where it's just a nightmare. Like, no one did any tests. No one cared. Everyone just wanted it up. And then 90% of the time too, the instant you put it up to, it's either complained about immediately because it's garbage because it was under engineered, or B is the person doesn't even care. You like put it up, you're like, oh, today's launch day. And they're like, so? It's like, what? You called me to put the site up. You told me to hurry up.
Yeah, it's really difficult. And you're right. Like, you're right in the saying that it's the break fast or move fast and break things.
Yeah.
It's again back to that whole concept of, where is your product at right now? Is it going to 1 user? Is it going to 100 users? What are you anticipating? If you don't have any idea what the anticipation is, that probably means that you're going to go to 0 users. Like, you need to find a way to predict a little bit and then solve for those users, maybe 10x those users. So let's say that you're a small startup and you think you're going to have, like, maybe you have a sign up list of 1,000 users on your small startup's landing page, wait list. Build for 10x that. Build for 10K users. That doesn't change much, but that gives you a little bit of headroom. And the reality is, unless you go viral, and again, the chances of going viral are still pretty small. So unless you go viral and you all of a sudden have 1 million users, you're going to be building a pretty robust system. But if you have 10,000, 20,000 signups, then maybe you need to think about going to, 100,000, right? 100,000 users, thinking about that, thinking a little bit ahead and understanding where you're at. And when you understand where you're at, you're no longer over engineering or under engineering. You're just engineering.
Yeah.
And that's really important. That's the key, is like, you have to know who you're building for and what you're building for.
Like you're taking your time and just like building the system instead of being like, I built the system under duress.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. We're going to move on to the next one here, which is leaving the hardest unknowns till last. I've seen this happen quite a few times that have killed projects in their, like, that's it. An example of that would be like a project, I think, that we quoted or I worked on. I can't remember what exactly it was, but There was a very complex scheduling. No, it was a mapping algorithm that they wanted. Something that would make it easier for their logistics departments to like map to have their drivers like go to the right destination points and stuff like that. So like a fairly complex system to the point where it wasn't really feasible. And we didn't know about that, or the team that I was working with didn't know about that until like 3 months before the deadline. And essentially had to change the product from the ground up, right? So that's a big unknown. And when you're going through and gathering requirements for a project, a lot of times you're going to get those feelings from certain requirements. Like people will be like, oh, I need I need regular website, whatever. And then all of a sudden they'll say something like, obviously it's some sort of schedule. Like I need some sort of scheduling software in there. And you're like, oh, what do you mean? Okay, that, a light bulb goes off. It's like, okay, everything else was normal. This is something that you're brushing off, but like as a client, you're brushing off. But as an engineer, you need to understand that those things are the things that you need to start asking a million questions about. And you need to get down to the bottom. It's like, okay, do you want scheduling software as in you want a, just like a calendar on there? Or do you want something where people can click and schedule to a time that isn't busy on your calendar? Like there's different levels of complexity in that one statement that a client could make. And when you get down to the bottom of it, if it's complex enough and you don't have a typical solution that you would use off the shelf, that becomes an unknown. And so like, as you go through requirements, you're going to collect a bunch of unknowns, and the unknowns will have different complexity. Some of them you're like, I think I know what this one is. And then some of them will be like, oh, this one is completely out of my ballpark. I don't know how to do this. And no matter how good of an engineer you are, most of the time, if you go to a new project, you're going to have some unknowns. That's just how it is with engineering, especially with like web development and like app development and stuff like that. There's just always going to be this one little thing or a couple little integrations that you just never done before. And you're going to have to figure that out. And if you don't figure them out immediately, like figuring them out as in like, is it doable? Is it something that you can do in a reasonable amount of time? It's going to lead to potential delays or inability to complete the product down the line, right?
Well, like Mike, you and I have had this. We talked about this on the show where when we were doing a lot of the kiosk stuff, one of the big questions was the hardware. And it was like, well, what hardware are we using? And also how are we getting it to people? And how are we getting it to the customers? Because again, we're making, web app, kiosk apps. And it was sort of like, well, we'll make the app first. And it was like, we'll just like figure out the hardware later. And it's like, I mean, I understand maybe making like a very brief MVP, but I think I wasn't a part of the team at this particular point in time, but you like continued with that project. And you told me the one time that what they had done is they had like sourced these like super, super cheap tablets. The web app was done, and then the tablet couldn't run the web app. And it's like, okay, now we have a really big issue because now this web app has to be rewritten or like changed or what have you. And then also because the hardware was left and it's a kiosk app, the longevity of the app running, like the life cycle of the app running, whatever it is, 9 to 5 or 24/7 or whatever it was, that couldn't be tested. Like it could only be tested in an emulator, and it should be in an emulator. And it's like, how many different devices do we have in our lives that like work differently? Like I have a Samsung phone and a Samsung tablet. Those two devices work differently. And so like, would you be confident being like, yeah, like whatever, just like the same app on my phone to the tablet, let's just ship that to like 100 customers or whatever when they're across the country with different hardware? It's like, well, no. Also, by the way, skip the app completely. How good is the device? Is the device going to burn in? Is the screen going to be screwed? Is the battery going to be okay? Is it going to work for more than 5 days? Is it going to overheat? Are they going to put it in an area where like maybe this thing needs ventilation and they didn't put it in there? Big friggin' problem. And like now the web app has to change, right? Like thankfully you just had performance issues, but like, I think you were saying there were some quality control problems as well, where you guys like bought like 10 and 7 were good and 3 were out. It's like a third, like a small sample size to be fair, but a 30% failure rate of hardware out of the box. How many of these things have like one solder joint that's cold that's working today and is not going to work tomorrow? Also, you have to think about, you're in a commercial thing with customers as well. So you're in a commercial and consumer space. Well, let's all be serious here. If it's not our equipment, we're not babying it. So I'm just going to pick it up. I'm not going to like frisbee it across the room, but I'm not exactly going to put it down on the most gentle thing. Like I got a job to do here and I'm using this tablet to sell to people. So I'm putting it down, picking it up, handing it to their kids if their kids are using the kiosk and this and that. I mean, okay, so now do we need like 1,000 cases? Do the cases fit? Like crazy. And that's that's another example of that's a real world example that touched the hardware. It's like, or excuse me, touch the software. It's like it wasn't just a website, it wasn't just a web app there. It was like, hey guys, like this is a multifaceted business, and we probably should have figured out at the very least some basic hardware so we can at least say like, oh, we couldn't give you the 8-inch tablet. Here's like a 7-inch that's tested. It's like that's much better than being like, I don't know how to get a tablet to you, and I don't know which tablet we're using. Like, and when I find out it's not tested, by the way, like what?
It's 100%. Like, yeah, that's the thing. Like that in that project, we definitely solved the easiest stuff first, and that was a problem. And it became a problem for us for like quite a while until we figured out the hardware software combination to do properly. Again, that was a mistake that I made and a mistake that the team made that I learned from and move forward from. And it was a really good learning experience for me because I had to do a lot of like on-site testing and stuff like that, realizing that, hey, if there's ever any hardware involved, that's the thing that you have to test first. That's the first thing. Like hardware, okay, screw the software. I don't give a crap. Like we can write anything you want. Let's get the hardware in-house and let's put that shit to the craziest stress test possible to see what it can do. And then let's build the software. Because until we know what the hardware can do, we have no business touching any code. And that's a really, really, really good lesson that I learned that I've used in the future. The other thing is that like sometimes when you're going through these projects, you're asked by like a project manager to estimate things. Estimate how long this is going to take, right? Like, how long is this whole project going to take? And when you have like 5 unknowns and you're like, well, I can, assign a 1 week estimate to each unknown or something stupid like that, it's just going to throw everything off. And so for these unknowns, like when you find these unknowns, and again, it's really hard to tell you exactly what an unknown is, but like Matt brought up a really good example there. Find the unknowns. My recommendation to you isn't to spend 5 days trying to figure out how long it's going to take. My recommendation is to jump in the code for the unknown, right? Like in if it's a development thing, and do a POC. Write a little code and see if you can get it working. Spend a couple days on that potentially. And then you might not be able to solve the exact thing that you're trying to solve, but you can get to a place where you're like, oh, this is possible. And then with that knowledge and experience, you can start estimating a little bit better. But without that, trying to estimate a project is pretty much impossible. Like until you have an understanding of how these things are going to work together, how all the requirements are going to work, and like solving all the unknowns, there's not even a point of estimating, in my opinion. I think you need to spend a significant amount of time estimating the unknowns, figuring out if you can do them, and then jump into the project. The more unknowns, the riskier the project becomes, right? The more people you might have to bring on to solve. And that's just my recommendation for the unknowns.
Honestly, leverage AI too. I've said that before. Customers will ask me questions. Usually it's like front-facing stuff where it's like, can a forum do this if we have this plugin? I can just ask AI. Because if the AI comes up with 3-4 solutions, I read them and they seem reasonable. It's like, I'm going to be able to likely at least either get there fully or like get pretty close. And like my problems are a little more simple because I'm dealing with a lot of the, again, small to medium business guys, but still like it's a very useful tool. Because like if I just Google it, it's like I can't be sure. Like especially if I'm out and about, it's like I'm gonna have to do some, about an hour of research. But the AI like cuts that down a lot, where I can at the very least just shoot a text off and be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's possible. Let me just like check when I get back to my desk, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a good point actually. Like I tried to kind of take AI away from this episode, but it is a good point to throw in that you can start using AI to help you with certain things throughout the process of figuring out your unknowns, especially. 100%. All right, moving on to the next one here, spending time in the wrong place. This is, again, kind of like a planning thing, trying to figure out where you can spend more time to make the most impact when you're planning a project or when you're working on a roadmap for a project is not easy. And this applies more to the people creating their own thing right now, like trying to create their own little startup or trying to create their own little product, where you think that you have this idea and you're just going to put it all together, but then you start spending time in the weirdest places, like figuring out fonts, figuring out the color scheme, figuring out a little button here and there, and you start realizing that you're going down rabbit holes when you should be focused on the core feature that you're developing. Right? You should be focused on the cycle that you want to create for your customers so that you can give it to your customer in a good state. and try to get some feedback as soon as possible rather than spending a bunch of time trying to figure out why, like, where to put the optimal place to put a button is on a page to get the most conversion when you don't even have any customers. So it's, again, back to that like intrinsic thinking about the project before you actually jump into it a little bit, and not from a perspective of like, oh, this is all the stuff that needs to get done. What's the most important thing that needs to get done? How can we break that down, right? Like, how can we get it to the point where it's MVP is a term that I've thrown around many times. It really comes down to not like a crappy, initial product. It comes down to something that is usable and delightful, like a good product that you can send to a user that doesn't have a million features in it. It's just the thing that the user wants at that particular time that they can adapt to their workflow. Whether they have to adapt to it a little bit jankily, it depends on the clients that you have, but it's okay sometimes to give them instructions on how to use it if you're testing with 3 or 4 clients, and get some feedback right away without having to spend a bunch of time trying to, again, build out an entire design system for a product that you haven't even tested if it's feasible to create yet.
I mean, I experience this like almost daily. Again, dealing with the small to medium business guys, we'll have people that have 100 people hit their site a month, 100 people hit their site a week, and that, that might be good for some, but for others it isn't. And in general, if you're trying to get web traffic, that's generally pretty low. And we'll have people sit there and argue with me over, well, this big website, like enter in like, I don't know, the Hollywood Reporter. I'm just randomly pulling that. The Hollywood Reporter or IGN or like another big website, they don't have this title here. And I'm like, sorry to tell you this, but if a customer shows up and sees a title here, they're not going to be like, IGN doesn't have stuff like this, and then leave. No one showing up to your website, seeing an extra title, and then leaving. Because and I've had customers straight up delete their working H1s. I have like an H1 at the top, and it like describes the page and everything like this. And it's like, it's working. Like, we're seeing traffic increase. And they're like, yeah, but like Hollywood Reporter and stuff don't need that. Well, I wonder why, because Hollywood Reporter, IGN, all these other places that you're referring to, all these other big websites, they've been around for a while. Also, they're a big website. So they have hundreds, if not thousands, at this point, of articles and pages and references and backlinks, especially. They have a massive amount of domain authority. They're a titan in the space. You're still at the bottom of the titan. You're like at the toenail. If we're talking about height, you're at like the toenail of the titan. Title of my memoir. I don't know why I wanted to say that. It's really wanted to say that.
The toenail of
I don't know why I wanted to say that, but I just like really, really wanted to. The instant I said the toenail of the titan. I don't know what that says about me, but
that's majestic, really. Like, what a majestic title.
it's looking up too, just like look.
Yeah. I can see the book cover now, like a massive foot, and you just like, yeah.
But no, like you're at the toenail of the titan, and you're literally shouting out to the world still, being like this is what I do. This is this is how I break my microphone. Like, this is what I'm trying to do. And you need like those, extra headings and extra things like that. And yet again, I'll get like vetoed, and it's like, no, the other places don't have it. You're not those other places. Like, take inspiration from them. Of course, they're big. Of course, they kind of like set the industry standards, but you can't do the same things as them. It'd be like saying like, well, like they hire, or they have like their staff, multiple teams, and they have like all their staff going to like all these events internationally, and they, from a corporate accounts, cover all the expenses. Do you have 100 users in a month? You can't do that yet. Like, you're not like, obviously that's the goal. That's great. That's not what you want to do. That's not what you want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's frustrating, and it's unavoidable sometimes. That's the reality of it too. You can't get around spending time in the wrong places sometimes. But again, back to my previous point of like, you're going to have it happen, but look back a little bit. Retrospect. Where did you spend time in the wrong places? You'll get better as you go moving forward. And if you look forward a little bit more too, you'll find places that you can spend less time on. That'll also save you time. But again, it's impossible to not be wasting time at all times, if that makes sense. I think that's a ridiculous statement, but it is true. Like, you can't be perfect in this. You can't
No,
be
there's
perfect
no
in
way.
anything that I'm saying, but you can mitigate it. You can go down a little bit and you can be more effective.
Well, you can do hindsight as well. Like hindsight's
Yeah,
2020. It's like, oh, I
exactly.
wasted that time. It's like, cool, okay, good. Now, what was that on? And now, what's really important to the project you're on?
Exactly.
You can use that for the future thing.
100%. Okay, next thing here I have is ignoring security basics. Really good example of this is that T app that just got hacked. Big app, #1 on the App Store. I think it was an app for women to share details about men that they've dated. It's a controversial application.
Oh, I do remember
Not going to
this.
comment on like the actual stuff about it, but the security stuff is interesting. They just didn't authenticate their endpoints for storing data. And they had stuff like licenses, like driver's licenses that they took in. They had every piece of personal information on these people, and someone just went in, looked at the API endpoints, and took all the data and leaked it. That killed them. So I'm pretty sure they're irrelevant application right now, right? They were, again, #1 on the App Store, and they were gaining more momentum. They were monetizing everything, and now they're dead. So really important to spend some extra time on security basics. Now, I'm not saying over-engineer, right? Like I'm not saying write your own security platform from scratch, go and become a PhD in every security metric. This is where you have to find that balance of like, hey, maybe a service can provide me a lot of these endpoints, and maybe I can go in and get someone to test it or something like that, right? Like maybe I can go somewhere in between where you can use something like Clerk that is a platform as a service for providing auth. And then you don't have to worry too much about actually, securing your endpoints because Clerk handles all that for you, stuff like that. So you need to find a way to use the skills that you have now. So you might not be a security expert, but provide the security that you expect at the time of launch. You don't want to be in a situation where you launch, everything is going great, and 2 weeks down the line, you have a massive security breach and all of your momentum is gone. Your reputation is in the hole, right? Like I don't want to scare people as well. Like this, another strategy you can use is just don't collect personal information as much as possible. Like if you only have usernames and like OAuth accounts that don't have emails attached to them for logging in, then if someone hacks you, who cares? Like nothing's leaked. So there's different strategies you can apply here. That's not just like, oh, become an expert level security programmer. Just don't store driver's licenses in your database, maybe in plain text and in plain images without any encryption. Like it's not really that hard. Like there's not really that much you need for a lot of these applications. That's why OAuth exists, where you kind of put that onus on Google, and you can ask Google to not even give you their email. I'm pretty sure, like, and just have the authentication flow going, and that's it, right? Like, so you can do a lot to mitigate it by just not doing the storage of the information, and you can do a lot to mitigate it by learning a little bit more about these security basics and about how to store things properly if you need it, right? So there's different things you can do. There's like proper environment variable management, principles of least privilege when you're doing stuff with like multiple team members. Don't give someone admin access to every single device or every single platform. Give them the access that they need. Server-side validation for inputs, so you don't want people to just input whatever they want into a form and have it hit your database directly. You want to check everything that a user could input, make sure that it's legit, make sure that it's just a string of some sort, a basic string that's not like an SQL query. You want to prevent cross-site attacking. You want to make sure that people can't like DDoS your site with some rate limiting. Like there's many different things you can do. I think there is an episode that we had strictly on security stuff that we can link to, but I recommend spending a little bit more time on this than people do, if that makes sense. I think it's important to understand this better than just nothing. Next thing I'm going to move on to here is skipping tests or testing too much. So again, similar to that first point of over-engineering, under-engineering, having a testing suite I think is really important, but understanding what to test and what not to test is almost equally as important. If you're going to be testing every little thing in a web application, you're going to be writing more code testing than you are writing features. That's just reality, right? All the little integrations that you have in your code, all the database mocks, all that takes time to write. And in some cases, it's worth it. And in some cases, it's not worth it. If you have a banking application, right, a lot of times it's better to have more tests because you're dealing with real people's money, right? Like if you don't have the right test, they could send money to the wrong place. Bad. If you're dealing with a recipe application, the worst case is someone gets the wrong recipe. You can have a little bit less tests. You can be more on the, build quickly, test the core infrastructure parts, make sure that the database connection is good, make sure that, you have an end-to-end test for people to be able to log in for every time you push to production. Maybe you have some unit testing around like inputting a recipe into the database. I don't know. Anyway, like you can choose the balance that you want, but ignoring tests and then testing too much is the thing that I want to advise against and the thing that I see killing projects. So if you ignore tests completely, as you build more complexity into your app, it'll break more often. That's just the reality of that graph, essentially.
Creating more technical debt.
Correct. You're creating more technical debt, therefore it's going to break it. The less tests you have, the more chance that that breaks on a wider scale. So as your complexity goes up, you better be writing more tests, period. On the other side, if you're only writing tests, then you're for like 100% test coverage, you are wasting a ton of time on tests that don't mean anything. It's okay for a testimonial on your page not to show up in the right section. Sometimes that's not going to break a user experience. Probably someone's going to report it to you and you'll fix it anyway. Not that big of a deal. So stuff like that, right? Like you pick your battles, you find ways around the ever arcing, like, oh, I need to test all of this. I need to test all this, or I don't write tests at all. Yeah. Other than that, we can move on to the next one here, which is no observability. I mentioned this quickly in one of the previous sections, but having a way to see what logs are coming in, like what error your users are getting, stuff like Datadog, Sentry.io, like all of those platforms give you a way to see client-side logs, right? So whatever people are going on your page and hitting errors, it'll send you a notification if you want, or you can go in and just see a list of the errors and see what people were doing even. You can even have it so that it records a little video kind of based on what they were doing during the error, so you know exactly what's wrong. Having that in place will make it super fast for you to go in and fix any issues that come up when you launch and provide a really good customer experience right away. Because people, when you launch something, especially you have a dedicated audience that's going to go hit it, they're going to expect some issues. And when you fix something for them quickly, they'll actually most likely be stickier than someone that goes through and has a really smooth experience, as interesting as that is. So when someone has a friction point and reaches out to you and you fix it super quickly, that is a better way to get a customer than having a really, really smooth experience. Not to say that you shouldn't aim for a really smooth experience, but like, I just want to point out the fact that having an ability to have your customers reach out to you and having ability to fix stuff for them quickly, which observability really helps, is a really, really, really good metric for you to have, and a success metric, in fact, in my opinion. If it takes you weeks or months to fix a bug in your product that is obvious and that people are reporting, then I feel like people will start to drop off really quickly. You need to be responsive in your communication, and you need to be quick in how well you address the issues that come up.
I actually almost want to add like another section, because like we're talking about no observability and that being a mistake. But I do think that over observability is also a mistake. So I'll give you an example. So we have a client who was like super into, early on, like before LLMs and stuff, they were super into the idea of having like a chatbot, and at the time like a quote unquote AI chatbot. Again, this is years ago now. And so it was more or less just like an if statement of like, if the user does this, then like ask them this question. Like it was very, very simple. But the thing is at the end of the day, that information, again, years ago, had to be like received and like processed by a human. And so I was like, okay, we can do all this, we could do all that. And I did all this like kind of like preparation, checking for, chatbots that were around, budgets, the whole shebang, because they were super into it. Like I kind of pushed back on it a couple of times. I was like, this is a new site. I feel like we don't need this. They're like, no, we need it. We need it. And so this gave us a level of observability, right? Where the bot would react to something like, oh, if the person like clicked this button 3 times, maybe ping them, like show up on their scene and be like, hey, like, are you interested in the pricing of this kind of thing, right? That gives us some observability. And then that chat gets like broadcast or sent over rather to a person. And the instant I said that, they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, the ether doesn't generate a person to handle this data for you. Like, you want this on your site to have observability so that a person takes an action, right? Like someone at your company reads the chat, or like sees that many people are confused on pricing, or like, something happens. Like there's a human feedback to what we're observing. Oh, this needs to change. Oh, we need to add this. Many people are confused on the pricing. Or maybe it's not even a website thing. Many people think it's too expensive. And now there's a business decision needs to be made. And so over observability, the reason why I say that is they were like, we don't have a person to go over this. And I was like, well, if you are shooting for 100 people a day, which is what they were shooting for at the time, 100 people a day to hit your website, and you think that 10% of those are not going to convert, but they're like potential conversions, right? Because you can have bots and stuff and bounces, people scraping, all kinds of nonsense. So you think 10% of them are going to be like, true people that are actually interested. And then you think an additional, reduce it again to like, there's going to be 1 to 2 people a day that are like actually people you're going to talk to. I was like, unfortunately, you need to talk to them. Whether that's using the AI chatbot and then it opens up like a, hey, we'll connect you with an agent or whatever. But the instant I mentioned a person, they were just like, we're not equipped for that. And I was like, I'm sorry to say, man, like that, like, what do you want? There was no LLMs. I wasn't in their industry. It was a completely different industry than what I was in. I was like, I don't know what the heck you guys are doing. I was like, unless you guys train me. But then now I'm going to like have to have like 9 to 5 hours sitting on a chat bot. Like, what do you mean? Right. And so that's an example of it's having too much observability, where it's giving somebody too much. Like that company wasn't there yet. Those things I just mentioned about like understanding the pricing and understanding what people are doing and understanding like how the customer's reacting and whether you should change things. Are they useful? Yeah, they really are. Unfortunately, you need to have like a whole bunch of foundation already set up to reach that point. Like that is not their foundational part. You need to have the site be nice. You need to make sure the traffic's going. You need to have your technical SEO together, your content plan together. You need to have so many things already put together. You need the designs, the hosting, right? So many things put together to the point where, okay, now we'll go beyond and start observing more than what we did have set up, which was Google Analytics at the time. Because I was like, guys, like we're just shooting for 100 people. Like realistically, milestone 1 should be, let's try to get 100 people on the site a day. Get 100 people on the site a day. When that's consistent for a time frame of say like 3 months, then we can start saying, okay, we need, Bill or whomever. We need Bill in the back. He's going to have to man the chat bot from 9 to 5 in his office or whatever. He's going to have to download the app. Like this, there's logistics involved here now. Because or like he's going to get an email and he has to answer within 24 hours. And then we need to say that on the site that, hey, someone's going to message you back within 24 hours. And we need to make sure that feedback loop based on the observability is, actually happening. Right. And again, like that was so much wasted time. So that touches on the wasted time thing, like, wasting time in an area that isn't useful, I guess, at the time. But it also touches on this second point where it's like, that's too much observability. And that does happen. Like the more common example is people asking for like really specific things inside of their Google Analytics. Like I'll get asked like, oh, there's an active users count and there's a bounce count and there's all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, well, take that stuff, but like, that's your active user count. And they'll be like, well, there's sessions, there's this, there's that. Active users has to go through a certain amount of metrics. Like it's been a while since I've looked, but it's like, they have to be on the site for a bit. They have to like do 2 actions or something and then it works. So maybe session counts better for your specific use case or, whatever the list, the list goes on and on. They're asking for a level of observability where even if I give them that metric, they're going to be like, what do I do with this? And it's like, you wanted me to engineer this big old solution when at this point, we're just in customer acquisition mode. We literally just want everybody, including all the bots, to come to our website. We just literally want more people, more. Let's get to a point where we have a growing pain of, I need more observability before we actually start getting that observability. Like, because you're going to have eccentricities. Like you're going to have customers that are eccentric, or they're not going to act like any other customer, or they're going to act like 1 in a million customers, where they're going to, think like, you really shouldn't have a heading here. And they're going to be that one person that's going to leave right? And it's gonna be like, what the heck were they doing? Oh, they spent their whole time hovering over the heading and then they left. It's like, are we gonna change our site plan because we had one weird person or one eccentric person that was like super, super disgusted that we had a heading here, or super disgusted that we had a random like little picture here? Like, no, we have to have enough people and enough data to observe to cut out those lines that don't fit on the line of best fit.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think you made a really good point there. No observability is bad. Too much observability could be even worse for many different reasons. You could be storing too much personal information. It can get leaked, for example.
That's a good example too. That's a very good example.
Exactly. So you need to find a way to do it for where you're at right now, right? Like if you're just starting out, you need some observability. You don't need every single data point that you could possibly get. But having said that, we're going to get on to the last point here, which is neglecting CI/CD and safe deployments. This is a big one for me. I'm big on developer experience. I want the developers that I work with to have the best developer experience, to be able to build without having to think about like how their stuff is going to look or how their stuff is going to get into production, how they can roll back. You want to have a system that has a way for you to deploy without having to worry, right? Without having to go through 10 different steps, without having to open up an FTP folder and put stuff into an FTP folder and hope that stuff gets through there without any progress indicators. You want to have some testing to be done in between all that to make sure that something like an exposed environment variable doesn't get into production for whatever reason. You want to spend a little bit of time here when you're first starting out to develop a pipeline for you to be able to write code, deploy code, and have it be safely there. And if something is wrong, be able to roll back really easily, because that allows for really quick iteration and allows for people to come in and start writing code and start writing features without having to worry about every little thing for taking down production. You need to allow for people to make mistakes. And this is where CI/CD helps the most. Having the proper version control system, right? For people not having to wipe each other's code. That's what Git is for. Having the proper way to deploy. Like Vercel helps a ton with that. Like you just push to your GitHub, you put to the right branch, and it'll automatically deploy. And then it also keeps all of your previous deploys that you can roll back to at pretty much any time. So like having these systems in place is going to make it so much more effortless to push the features that you've developed to production at any point in time. You don't have to wait for the exact, perfect time period of people not using your platform and, you wake up at 2 a.m. to do that. The platforms allow you to have these continuous deployment systems where as a product is deploying, the old site is still up. And so like you're deploying, nothing's happening, and all of a sudden you're deployed, then it switches. So having that multiple continuous integration system is hugely beneficial. So just, again, spending a little time here, I'm not going to go too far into it, but if you can spend a little time here to make it easier for you to build, or if you have a team, for your team to build, I guarantee you're going to see a lot more throughput on your team, a lot less hesitation to push stuff to production.
I was going to say hesitation is a big one. Like you're canceling the hesitation. Yeah.
That's big. Like, and that, I want to make that really clear, that hesitation leads to people just not shipping. Correct. A lot of times, because they're like, oh, well, maybe I need to have the entire team here just to ship this one feature. Whereas if you have the ability to roll back, like they'll just ship it. They'll let everyone know that they're shipping. And then if they see something wrong, they'll roll back and be like, hey, something was wrong. I'm going to fix it. I've had that happen to me this week. We shipped a feature, noticed a little side effect, just rolled it back. Wasn't a big deal. We rolled it back, fixed that side effect, pushed the fix. No one was panicking. No one cared. Users never hit it. It was a perfect system. And if that was in a system that didn't have this consideration, what would have happened is, oh shit, we're screwed. I have to wait for another 10-minute deployment to fix it. It could be down, whatever. Like you're gonna program differently. Like you're going to be a different developer in that system versus a system that allows you to fail.
Well, you're also gonna scare talent away. You'd scare me away. Like I'm already a person that gets fired up right away and then I kind of go back down. It's like if you keep me at 11, I'm gonna be like, what the hell are we doing here? And I've absolutely been on like a team before that has just been like, it's, calm, absolute chaos. Oh my God, what's happening? Everyone's running around. And like, I was only there for a short period, but I was like, man, I couldn't do this forever. Like I was only there on a short-term contract, like yeah, whatever, it's fine. The guys are great and everything. The job's great. And then all of a sudden it isn't. And then what happens is it's like you're not walking on eggshells in terms of like talking to people. You're walking on like technical eggshells where it's now holding us back where I'm like, man, I can't even like really like do this as a learning exercise right now. Because if I mess anything up and I'm learning, so guess what? I'm going to. If I mess anything up, what's going to happen? Like everyone's going to run around and everyone's going to start shouting and screaming and everything else. And then the brass is going to show up and they're going to change our procedures. So now our procedures are like super strict, super stringent, right? And it's like now we're locked down by the brass. We're worried. There's high panic like things that can happen at any time. Why, right? Like why have to deal with that? Like why deal with that? And so I feel like you're going to scare some devs away. I mean, Mike, you were working on a team where I remember you telling me there was like a major incident. You showed up like an hour or two into it because it was an international team. So like it was like whatever, the morning for you, an hour or two later. And no one had pulled logs. And it's like no one's pulling logs, but everyone's panicking. Like what if it's something stupid like one of our trials for like a random service that we like employed ran out and it just like had an effect? Like what if it literally just says that like, hey, this is hey, this trial is over. Like it could have been something as simple as that. It's like just check the logs, but instead it's like nope, war room, panic. I'm not doing that. I'm not waking up every day being like, oh no, like open my Slack, and then be like scared to open my Slack and be like, every time I hear that Slack noise, be like, like why? What the heck's the point? At some point, it's like unless you're paying me so much money that I don't care about any finances, the only stress of my life is you opening war rooms and not checking logs. Then fine. But if you're not paying me that much and I'm just sort of like a regular worker, as you will, right? It's like, I'm not going to take unnecessary stress. There's stresses on a job. I understand that, but I'm not going to take unnecessary stresses.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think you nailed on the head there. It's just a really good thing to have to just make everyone happy. The product, people, the clients, like the customers, the engineers. And it doesn't take that much to set up anymore. There's so many different pipelines you can set up. There's so many different services you can use that it's become almost a standard in engineering at this point to have a good pipeline that if you don't have one, it's almost a shocking factor. So highly recommend spending a little bit of time here. But that's it. I think we're done with the top mistakes that I've seen. Maybe we'll do another episode where I see some more mistakes or think of some more. Let us know if you like this kind of stuff. If this had any value to you. For sure, willing to, think of other, like if you have another mistake that's worse that you think people make, let me know as well. I'm on X at HTML everything, and I think we're on HTML all the things on all the other platforms. So yeah, let us know.
Yeah, at the very least, you can search us and find us by searching of HTML all the things. But yeah, no, I think that's good episode. Absolutely, like down to hear feedback for almost like listicle, I guess, episodes like this. That's cool. And also, as Mike was talking a bunch, I grabbed a few episodes. There's 2 or 3 different episodes that I went through our back library and grabbed like a security episode and a couple other things. So go ahead and check that out. Those will be in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com. And remember, we're on Patreon. If you want to support episodes like this, that's patreon.com/htmlallthethings. Check out the tiers and give that a go. And many thanks to our $3 tier patrons, Tim from the Web Hacker on thewebhacker.com, Jason from Geek Life Radio via geekliferadio.com, Garrett Segal, Level Up Financial Planning via www.levelupfinancialplanning.com, Magnus from YesWeb via yesweb.se, Syntaxify from the HTML All the Things Discord server, and Stacy Mosteler from the website swoonworthydesigns.com. And also just a reminder that we are powered by Code Rabbit. You can go and get some of those AI code reviews. You can cut that code review time down, cut those bugs down instantly. 14-day free trial at coderabbit.ai. No credit card needed, and just a 2-click sign up. Again, powered by Code Rabbit, or use the link in the description or in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com. And we'd like to give a shout out to Michael LaRocca, a contributing author on htmlallthethings.com. Michael is the author of Self-Taught the X Generation blog at selftaughttxg.com. Feel free to leave a comment or a review in the platform that you are listening to this on, and this outro will sign us off.
You've been listening to HTML All the Things podcast. Web development, web design, and small business. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show, and we hope you appreciate that we talk to you like human beings And we hope you had some fun. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon at HTML All the Things, and on Twitter at HTML Everything. Until next time, this is HTML All the Things, signing off.